Hi, Manna family. You know, the Bible is a record of the extreme measures that God took throughout history in order to reconcile the human race to himself. This worldwide COVID-19 pandemic is certainly an extreme event, and God is using it to draw people to himself. Today we want to look at the book of Jonah, which may be one of the greatest illustrations of John 3:16 that is recorded in the Old Testament. The book of Jonah demonstrates that the God of the Bible loved the whole world, even the enemies of God's own people. God called Jonah to pronounce judgment on Israel's enemies, which were the Assyrian Empire. Miraculously, the entire capital of Nineveh, about 500,000 people, repented, and God graciously held back his judgment for another 150 years. Instead of being thrilled, Jonah was angry, because God showed mercy toward the people whom he hated. In Jonah 3:10, it records that when God saw their deeds, that they turned away from their wicked way, then God relented concerning the calamity which he had decided he would bring upon them, and he did not do it. But it greatly displeased Jonah, and he became angry. And he prayed to the Lord and said, "Please, Lord, was not this what I said while I was still in my own country? Therefore, in order to forestall this, I fled to Tarshish, for I knew that you are a gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger and abundant in loving kindness, and one who relents concerning calamity. Therefore now, O Lord, please take my life from me, for death is better to me than life." Jonah was so upset that God showed mercy to the enemies of Israel, the Ninevites, that he wanted to die. Remember that when God had called Jonah to go to Nineveh in the first place, Jonah tried to run away from God. Silly boy. Jonah is an illustration of the proverb, "You can run, but you can't hide." God sent a storm after Jonah and also a great fish in order to get his disobedient prophet to Nineveh. You know, Jonah was not afraid that Nineveh would reject God. He was afraid that God would accept Nineveh, which is exactly what happened. When Jonah preached, Nineveh repented, God forgave them, and Jonah became angry because God was merciful. Jonah really thought that God should love whom he loved and hate whom he hated. He forgot, and Israel did too, that God's blessing on Israel was so that they could be a blessing to others and tell others about their gracious, merciful God so they could have a relationship with him as well. Instead, they tried to hog all of God's blessings for themselves. Even today, we often forget how much God loves people, even the ones we don't love. God loves people enough to do extreme things to bring them to himself, things like allowing a global pandemic. People are now reconsidering their lives, and some of them are more open to discuss spiritual realities than they were before this pandemic. You know, some people may only come to Christ and go to heaven because of this virus. Let's ask God to help us see people like he sees them and love them like he loves them. We've been saved so we can tell others how to be saved as well. After all, God loves them just like he loves us. Remember, God designed us to do life together,